Hello, everybody. It is Rob Quester here from Bright Flame Books, and I want to welcome you to the webinar wherever in the world you're logging in from. This is Your Book is Your Brand, and we're going to talk about how to get more leads, how to close more deals and raise your prices in the next 30 to 90 days with the #1 best-selling book, even if you're not a writer. Now, before we get started, I want you to imagine that you're turning up for a sales meeting with a potential client. As you go in, you meet one of your competitors who is just leaving. They have a huge, smug smile on their face, and it's obvious that their meeting with the client went very well. Now, when you walk in, you see that the client is looking very thoughtfully at your competitor's business card, and their desk is covered in brochures and papers. There's lots of highlighting and underlining and post-it notes all over them. That's probably not how you would have hoped the meeting would start, but before you sit down, you reach into your bag and you pull something out. Just before we get started, you say, I took the liberty of bringing you a copy of my best-selling book. And even if we don't end up working together, I know you'll find it useful because it answers most of the questions people have before hiring somebody like me. Now, how do you think that the dynamic of that sales meeting just changed? Do you think that your competitor would still have that same smug grin on his face if he'd just seen that? Or do you think that he might be starting to get a little bit worried? And there's a chat box on this page. So I'm going to ask you to put in there how you think the dynamic changed. And this is going to be interesting because, of course, I know there's going to be hopefully about just 3 or 4 seconds delay in that message coming through. But so in the chat box, do let me know how you think that the sales meeting would have just changed when you hand over your book if your competitor had been sitting there. Typically, the kind of responses that I get at this point are things like, oh, he's not going to be smiling now. It's a done deal. Some people say woohoo, which is quite a valid response as well. Because what happened is you have just taken ownership of the sales meeting. And what I'm going to show you in this presentation is how to do exactly what I just described and how to do it quickly and easily. Peggy says the competitor will feel sick. Absolutely. It's a very different meeting that you're suddenly in at that point. So here's my promise to you. Over the next 30 to 40 minutes or so, I'm going to share with you the methods that we use with our clients so that you can implement them for yourself to become a best-selling author in the next 30 to 90 days, even if you're not a writer, indeed, even if you failed English in school. And I know that's true because at school, I was actually put into remedial English class. It's not something I often share with people, but I wanted to share it with you because a lot of people are worried that their English isn't good enough to be a writer. And that absolutely is not true, and I'm going to show you why that's not true in this presentation. I'm also going to share with you how to use that book to get yourself in front of potential clients and beat off the competitors so that you get more leads and you can close more sales. And because you're going in as a published author, you can do it without cold calling and without sounding salesy. Now, I know that the New York Times says that 80% of people want to write a book. So why don't you go ahead and write in the chat box the word yes if you have ever considered writing a book. And I'm just going to put that into the chat box as well. It's interesting because although 80% of people supposedly want to write a book, if you look at the statistics of how many books are actually published each year, it turns out that only about 1 person in 10,000. John says yes, he's wanted to for quite some time. Absolutely. Only about 1 person in 10,000 ever actually gets to write a book. And so I'm going to ask the question there in a second. Let me just post it in here. If you are one of those 80%, then what was it that stopped you from writing it? And again, the kind of things that come up here are, firstly, time, obviously. A lot of people feel they don't have the time, and one of the things that I'll show you is how to do it very quickly so that our clients typically spend about 12 hours interacting with us. Knowledge is the other one. A lot of people are worried that they don't know enough. Some people are worried that they could write a book and nobody would read it. and that's down to how we promote it and how we launch it. Some people are worried that there are just too many books in their subject, and that's never a problem, because my bigger worry would be if there was no book on a subject, because it implies that nobody feels there's any point in writing a book. It's too marginal a topic. So these are all great reasons or great excuses that people come up with, but by the end of this webinar, I hope that you'll understand that none of them should get in the way of you writing your book. And the important thing here is what I'm sharing with you isn't a theory. I'm speaking from experience, and I use the same techniques to grow my own business. There is a reason why I've written 6 Amazon best-selling books, and that's because books work as marketing tools. And I'll be sharing examples throughout the webinar of how I use my books and how my clients have used theirs to get clients and to charge more. And my focus in everything that I do in my own business and with my clients is on what works. So if you take what I'm sharing with you and you implement it, you will get clients and you will make money. And what I'm sharing with you really is just the tip of the iceberg of what I share with my clients. But just so you know, this is work that I do every single day with high achieving and high earning professional experts just like you. So here's what we're going to cover in our time together. The first is authority expert secret number 1, which is how a book will help you to reach the 99% of potential clients who ignore most of the marketing that you and your competitors are doing, so that you can finally stop wasting money on marketing that isn't going to work, and you can start to create campaigns that will actually make you money. Secret number 2 is the 6 steps that you need to follow to create a credibility building book, even if you failed at English, or even if English isn't your first language. And as I said, I'm living proof of that. And finally, secret number 3 is how to get rich by giving away your book. A lot of would-be authors have dreams of writing a blockbuster book and retiring on the royalties. But there's actually a lot more money to be made by giving away your book, as long as you give it to the right people and you do it in the right way. And I'll be showing you how that works later in the presentation. But for now, what I do have is some fantastic news for you, which is that unlike a lot of webinars that go on for 90 minutes or a couple of hours, and there's this huge sales pitch all the way through, there is absolutely nothing for sale in this presentation. So you can just relax. You can turn off all the distractions, turn off your cell phone, turn off your Facebook. You know, your friends aren't going to unfriend you if you don't like their photograph of their cat for the next 30 minutes. And close down your email, get off the web, and above all, pay attention and take lots of notes. Make sure you've got a pen and paper handy. Because if you're a consultant, a speaker, a coach, or a professional advisor, and you're serious about getting better results, then the next 30 to 40 minutes will change your life. And then I'm going to ask you to stick around until the end of the webinar, because I have a very valuable special gift for you just for attending this program. It is my Author Expert Marketing Bundle with my latest marketing guide, 16 ways to grow your business with a book. And then I'm also including 2 swipe files of examples that you can model in creating your own best-selling book, and that is titles that sell and covers that work. And I'll tell you more about those and how you can get the bundle at the end of this webinar. I'll give you the download link. So I have a question for you. Does this sound like you? First, perhaps you struggle to communicate to potential clients exactly why they need you and what you do and the benefits of working with you. Or perhaps the struggle isn't so much that as standing out from your competitors, and you find it hard to explain exactly how you're different from, or indeed how you're better than, the other professionals in your field. Or perhaps you feel that you absolutely have to charge the market rate or even less than the market rate just so that people will hire you. You know that you should be charging premium rates, but you're afraid to. Well, the good news is that none of this is your fault, and all of it can be solved. I want you to imagine instead a world where you have leads and clients chasing you to work with you, and you never have to worry about having to cold call or sounding salesy ever again. And then ask yourself, what would it be like when you understand why it is that 99% of marketing fails, so that you can spot the 1% of marketing that will work, and you can stop wasting money on marketing that doesn't work? What difference would that make to you? What difference would it make to your business and to your family? And finally, how would you feel when you hold a copy of your own best-selling book 30 to 90 days from now. And that's one of my clients there, Angela. That was her launch party last year. That was her first book. She's actually got a second launch coming up in a few days, where I suspect the grin will be even broader than that. So actually, why don't you put in the chat box what you would most look forward to about opening up the box that comes from Amazon and taking out the first copy of your book, a book that you wrote that captures your knowledge and your expertise and sets out exactly why you are the person that clients should be working with, whatever it takes and however much it costs. Now, if you excuse me, my laptop to one side, where I've been entering the chat, decided to reboot itself a couple of minutes ago, and I've been waiting for it to come back to life. So that actually allows me to fill in a few seconds while that question gets through to you. But for me, it all started back in 2010 when one of my clients asked me a simple question. He said, why don't you write a book? Because after all, that's what experts do. So I did. I wrote my first book, More Clients, More Money, More Fun. And then a few short months later, I wrote Secrets of a Six-Figure Expert. And we're not talking about War and Peace here. More Clients was about 40 pages long, and Secrets was about 65 pages long. So they were long enough to give great information and short enough that they could be read in a single sitting. But even at that length, those books helped me to launch a $20,000 mastermind program in just 3 weeks. And I made $120,000 from a list of just 253 names. So if you've ever thought that you can't be successful because you don't have a list, a book is one of the ways that you can overcome that. Secrets of a Six-Figure Expert also helped me to make a $20,000 sale to somebody I'd never met before, and to do it in just a few hours. And I actually hardly had to speak to her. And I'll share with you later in the presentation exactly how that happened. And similarly, it also helped me to close a $38,000 consulting sale in what I always call the world's shortest sales meeting. And again, I'll tell you the story of that later in the webinar. And finally, my writing built me a global reputation. And I know that because when I landed in Canada in early 2014, I was looking for a place to rent. And we made some inquiries with realtors, and one of them called me back. And after we chatted for a few minutes, he went silent. And then he said, I've got to ask you this. Are you the Rob Quester? Now, I have to admit, it is a fantastic feeling when people put the word "the" in front of your name and put an additional stress on it. Well, it turns out that one of his colleagues had attended an event that I ran in 2011, which was 3 years before. And she'd picked up a copy of Secrets of a Six-Figure Expert. And then when she finished reading it, she gave it to him, and he still had it. Now, think about that for a moment. If instead of my book, all she picked up was my business card, do you think that she would ever have passed it on? And if all that he had been given was my business card, do you think that that realtor would have had any idea who I was when he heard my name 3 years later? I doubt it. I really do doubt it. But a book is different because a book gets read. People read books carefully and they keep hold of them. It's very hard to throw away a book. And people remember them, and they remember the writers of the book. Now, just before we go any further, I have to point out that my results are not typical. I will walk you through the system that we use at Bright Flame Books to get great results for our clients, but I don't know you and I don't know your business. So I'm not going to say outright that anything that I teach you here will work for you. What I am going to do is share the results that my clients get and that I get, but I'm sharing them as an example of what's possible. It's not any kind of guarantee of results or performance, because what you have to remember is that the average person who attends any training gets absolutely no results from it. In just the same way that most of the people who get a gym membership do not end up looking like the people in the posters on the gym windows. However, I am happy to share with you for free exactly what's working for me and for my clients. And just remember that this is not for people who want to get rich quick. It's not for the work-at-home biz-op crowd or for amateurs. It's for serious professionals. And with that out of the way, let's look at secret number 1, how a book will help you to reach the 99% of potential clients who ignore most of the marketing that you and your competitors are doing. And this section is all about why 99% of marketing fails. Most consultants and speakers and coaches and professional advisors believe that getting clients is hard because there just aren't enough clients out there. But in fact, what's really happening is that 99% of potential clients actively ignore most of the marketing that you and your competitors are doing. But a book will help you to get through to them. What do I mean by that? Well, I'm going to show you how to stop wasting money on marketing that virtually no one pays any attention to. And I'll show you the 3 kinds of buyer in every market and what it is that they're really looking for. And finally, I'll show you how to use a book to give that to them. You see, most marketing fails because business owners don't understand their market, and they don't understand the buyer's journey that people go through in making a purchase decision. In any market, there's a very small proportion, less than 1% of buyers who are ready to buy now. And we actually call them the now buyers. And what they're doing is they're actively trying to choose exactly who to buy from. So all that they really need is a nudge. So they are the ones who'll respond to marketing that says things like, call now for a free consultation, or buy this week and get 20% off, or buy one, get one half price. All of that marketing, which is, let's face it, pretty much 90% of the marketing that gets done, is aimed at those now buyers. The problem is it doesn't address the needs of the other 99%. And that 99% is made up of what we call the future buyers and the soon-to-buy buyers. Now, the future buyers may not even realize that they've got a problem. So inviting them to call for a quote to fix a problem that they haven't got, at least in their mind, isn't going to get you anywhere. What they need is they need to understand why they should even buy in the first place. The soon-to-buy buyers are further along their journey. They at least know that they have a problem, and they know that there are several ways that they could solve it. So they're trying to make their decision simpler for themselves. They're trying to eliminate options. And so they are coming up with objections, and they're testing different possibilities. And they're actively looking to exclude possible solutions. And that includes the solution that you're offering. Now, what both of those groups have in common, though, is that they are looking for information that will help them to make that decision. And that's why I love using books for marketing, because it allows you to have that conversation with your future buyers and your soon-to-buy buyers and explain to them what their problem is and why the other possible solutions aren't right for them, so that they do become now buyers. And when they do, the only option that they're seriously considering is you. And you can do all of that without having to spend any time with them until they're now buyers. But the point is this: the sooner you catch someone on their buyer journey, the more likely they are to buy from you. And if you catch them by being the one who literally wrote the book on your area of expertise, then you become the natural choice for them. And it's what I call the natural expert, the person that they have to work with. Now, instead of all of that, most marketing just tries to convince people by being clever and entertaining. But that's not enough. This is a video by a German firm of divorce lawyers. And I won't play it to you because obviously it's in German, but it starts with a shot of a big house in a leafy neighborhood. And in the background, you hear a chainsaw start up and then stop. And the camera zooms in on one side of a house, and an attractive young woman appears. And as the camera comes in closer, you can see that her face is spattered with blood. And then it pans down to her hand, and you see that she's carrying a chainsaw covered in blood. And up comes the punchline: this wouldn't have happened if you had a divorce lawyer. And then the name of the firm and their telephone number and all of the usual stuff. And it's clever, it's funny. It got them featured on things like the Wall Street Journal. But what use is a mention in the Wall Street Journal to a divorce lawyer in a small German town? It's not going to get their phone ringing, at least not with potential clients. And the other thing is, even assuming that you were in the right town and that you saw the ad, it's not going to make you suddenly think, you know what, I hadn't thought about it, but maybe I should get a divorce. I'll call them right away. Unless you're actually thinking of getting a divorce. In other words, unless you were already a now buyer, you're not going to respond to that advert. Now, I don't know for a fact what the firm's results were with this campaign, but I am willing to bet that I could have got them a lot more calls, and it wouldn't have cost them any more than they were already spending on the ad. Here's how that would work. Imagine if at the end of the advert, the message that came up instead was, there are 10 ways to save a troubled marriage, but a chainsaw isn't one of them. For a free copy of our book, 10 Ways to Save Your Failing Marriage, call, and then the phone number. Now, do you see how that appeals to the soon-to-buy buyers and even to the future buyers, in fact, to anyone who feels that their marriage isn't going as well as it could? And you might be thinking, but why would a divorce lawyer write a book about ways to save a marriage? Well, remember what I said. The buyer needs to eliminate possibilities. They want to reduce their choices. So in the book, that's what you're doing. You're pointing out the problem with other possibilities. And in this case, those 10 ways are the other options. Look, any piece of marketing, whether it's a book, a video, or a website, or a brochure, or whatever it is, has to do 4 things. And I judge it by what I call the conversion equation. The first thing it has to do is to interrupt. It has to stop the prospect in their tracks and pull them away from whatever they were doing in their normal life. Then it has to engage them so that they'll keep watching or reading or whatever it is, they'll keep consuming the advert. And then it has to educate them so that they get real value from it. And as we just saw, that value comes from helping them to move further along the buyer journey, to eliminate options and to zero in on your solution as the one that they should be using. And finally, it has to make them an offer so that they will take action. Now, the divorce video is great on interrupt and engage. It's got eerie music, it's got the buzzsaw, it's got the blood to make you wonder what's happening, but it's got no real value. And the nearest thing it's got to a call to action is the equivalent of, here's my number, call me maybe. That's why books work so well in marketing, because when an Amazon package lands on someone's desk, it interrupts them. They have to open it up to see what's inside. And then if the title and the cover do their job, it engages them so that they want to read the book. And then inside, you can educate the prospect and you can invite them to take the next step with an offer. So you can bring them back to your website, you can bring them into a webinar, you can bring them somewhere that makes them take an action that says, I'm interested, tell me more. So that's secret number 1. Let's move on to secret number 2. And that is 6 steps to create a credibility building book, even if you failed English at school or English isn't your first language. What I'm going to share with you is the 6-step process that we use at Bright Flame Books to turn our clients into published authors without them having to write a single word. And you can use exactly the same process to do this yourself. You don't need us to help you, although obviously if you want us to help you, I would love to chat with you afterwards, and I'll tell you how you can make that happen later in the webinar. But the thing is, most consultants and speakers and coaches and professional advisors, they mistakenly believe that you have to be a great writer to write a book. Actually, you can create a 100-page or 200 or 300-page book in a few hours if you ask the right questions and you record your answers. So in this section, I'm going to share with you why print books are still the way to go in a Kindle world, how to make sure that your book hits your readers' hot buttons, how to plan your book so that you never run out of ideas on what to put in the book. In other words, how to avoid writer's block, and how to make sure that your book represents your personal brand in the best possible way. So here are the 6 steps that we take our clients through in what I call our collaborative writing process. And like I say, it's a process that you can run through for yourself. The first step is what I call book targeting. Now, the reason a lot of books fail, and indeed it's also one of the biggest causes of writer's block, is that the author isn't clear on who they are writing the book for and why they're writing the book. So in the targeting phase, you're going to get very clear on who your ideal reader is. We call it finding your Angela, what their demographic characteristics are, their age, their gender, and all of that, but also their psychographics, how they think, what their problems are, what their values are, what's important to them about how they solve their problem. Really getting inside the head of your ideal reader. Because once you understand your ideal reader, then you can position the book so that they will want to read it? What is it about your background or experience or about your business that will appeal to them and will make them take notice? Why are you the best person to tell them about your subject? Why is your solution ideal for how they want to solve their problem? That's a lot easier to answer when you know who they are in the first place. And all of that is what's going to go into the introduction of your book. So while I run through this, if you already have an idea of who your ideal reader is, why don't you put that into the chat box? And I'm sorry if I missed a few chats earlier on. My PC that I'm running the control room on, as I say, reset itself, so it's only just got back in there. But yeah, if you already know who it is that you are targeting your book at and why they would want to read it, then you can let me know in the chat box. Now, as part of our targeting, we also have to figure out how the book is going to fit into your business. Yes, it's going to be a branding tool, but what kind of campaign will you build around it, and how will that help you to build your business? Once you understand that, then you can figure out what steps you want your reader to take next after they've read the book. And then you can ask yourself, okay, if this is what I want the reader to do, then what do they need to know in order to make that the next logical step? Because that's the clue for the next stage, the content planning. And here what you're going to do is you're going to write a high-level outline based on the things that you just decided that your reader needs to know. And you're going to get about 12 points, and those will become the 12 content chapters of the book. Now, you could start writing at this stage, and you'd already be a lot more confident than many new authors, because you know what you have to write about, so it's a lot easier to get past writer's block. But we don't stop there, because what we do is when we work with our clients, we take those 12 points and we turn them into a series of questions, 200 or 300 questions. Why is this point important? What happens if you don't pay attention to it? How does it help? What are some examples of this in action? How did you learn it? You're really digging deep into the topic, into that one single point. And those questions are what we then use in stage 3, which is the expert interviews. So with our clients, one of our staff writers interviews you over several days, and they go through those 200 or 300 questions, and they're asking follow-on questions, and they're clarifying, and they're really getting everything you know out of your head. And then you can get and if you are doing it for yourself, you can get a colleague or a friend to do the same thing for you and record the interviews and get them transcribed. And that becomes the very first rough draft of the book. And I've just seen, I have several students, people who lost their job, burned out employees, etc. So yeah, so there's a great target audience. And if you know that you're writing for people who've lost their job or people who are looking for their first job and burned down employees, you can start to ask yourself, so what is it that they need to, that I want them to do as a result of reading the book? And how do I get them to move towards doing that? What would they need to know in order to realize that that was what they needed to do? So that was our expert interviews. We go through the 200 or 300 questions with people, and you record with yourself, you record the answers to that, and you get that transcribed, and that becomes the first draft. But of course, that's going to sound very, very rough. So the next stage is developing and editing. So you take those transcripts and we turn them into a book. It's your ideas and your words, so it isn't ghostwriting. Nobody's making anything up. Well, we're just taking what you said and turning it into something that sounds less like a conversation and more like a book. So if you're doing this for yourself, here is where you would tighten up the structure. You would make sure that the ideas flow naturally. You take out the repetition that inevitably happens when you're talking, and you sort out the times when you went off topic, because let's face it, when you're having a conversation with someone, you're bound to go off topic and you'll start going down a track and then come back. And so all of that needs to get sorted out. It's a very detailed process. And a lot of self-published books fall down in this way because the author just hands their manuscript to a friend and says to them, look, could you just check there's no typos and there's no punctuation errors? So once you've done that development and you've made sure that everything flows naturally and flows logically and that there is a structure to the book, then you get into stage 5, which is production and finishing. And this is where we turn the draft into a proper book. So for our clients, what we do is we get professional designers to create a cover design, and we get the interior typeset so that everything from the layout of the text on the page to the positioning of headings and the use of fonts and shadings, it's all designed to make the interior look like something that comes from a mainstream publishing house. And again, this is one of those areas where self-published books really fall down, because you can spot a self-designed cover. It's what I call the t-shirt look, where you've got a photograph in a frame in the middle of the page. And you can spot that it's a self-published book. So if you can get a professional cover design and the interior designed to look like something that came from a publishing house, your book will really stand out. I've just seen another response, wanting more people who want more purpose to their life, getting out of the rut and creating something from your own talents and skills. So again, think about who is the ideal audience for that. What is it that they are going to want to get out of the book, and what is it you want them to do as the next stage? Okay, back to that. That was an example of things getting taken off track. As I said, and that if we were editing this into a book, that would then get moved backwards into the section on the content planning. So you've got your book done. You've had it formatted. The next step is to get it printed. Now, in the old days of non-traditional publishing, by which I mean anything other than going with a big publishing house, that meant that you ended up with a garage full of books. With modern print-on-demand processes, you can now order a single copy of your book, or even none if you want. The printer and the retailer will take care of order fulfillment for you as the orders come in. And I get asked by people, why would I want to get my book printed when everything is moving to Kindle and ebook readers? And the answer is simple. Remember, your objective with this book is impact and credibility. Now, I don't know about you, but I have several thousand ebooks and PDFs on my laptop that I've never opened, and I probably never will. There's a lot more impact and credibility from having your printed book land on a potential client's desk rather than a PDF or an ebook file that sits in their email inbox. And if you're giving a presentation, it's much better to hold up a printed copy of your book rather than showing an ebook on the projector screen. And so we do both. We do a printed book and we do Kindle, because you have to get your book into print if you're aiming to build your authority. Now, the two main companies that we use for getting our clients' books into print, and that you're able to use both of them yourself as an individual, are CreateSpace.com, which is owned by Amazon. So that takes care of getting your book into their catalog. And then there's Ingram Spark, which is a division of the company that supplies all the bookshops and libraries around the world, and that takes care of getting your book into other retailers. It's not always easy to get a book onto the shelf, but at least you can get it into their online catalog so that somebody could walk into a store and say, can you order this book? And the shop will be able to say, yes, we can, absolutely. So the final stage is launch and monetization. None of the other 5 stages matter one little bit if you're not going to make money from having a book. So for our clients, we coordinate a book launch that is intended to make the book into an Amazon bestseller on the day it's released. And so far, touch wood, we've achieved that result every time we run a launch campaign. And this is the hardest part for you to manage for yourself, simply because there is a strategy behind it. And we don't have time to go into that strategy in this webinar. In fact, it would be enough to fill 2 or 3 webinars all on its own. All I will say is that most traditional publishers and independent authors are really bad at this aspect of publishing. Most authors just hope that, as they say, if you build it, they will come. And sadly, they don't come unless you orchestrate it. So what can you do if you are implementing this for yourself on your own? Well, even if your book isn't a bestseller, it's still a great tool for building credibility and authority, and it can still be the core of a marketing campaign. Now, our preference and what we teach our clients to do is direct response marketing. In other words, you're going to use the book to get a potential client to take a specific action. And that could be to call you or to come into your office or shop or email or whatever action it is that you need them to take. Well, that's why we planned it out at the start of the process, because you now know what action you're going to want them to take. I can see in the chat that David has just said, hey, Burned Out Employees is my book. John, David, you do not have to argue. There are plenty of burned out employees in the world. They'll buy both of your books probably. And that's the other thing to bear in mind when people say, oh, there's lots of books on my topic. People never buy a single book on a topic. They buy multiple books. So there's plenty of markets for everybody out there. Anyway, so launch and monetization. Let's look at how you do that. Secret number 3, which is how to get rich by giving away your book. Now, as I said before, we're not trying to make money from royalties here. We're making money by using the book to get people to hire you or to buy from you. Now, most consultants and speakers and coaches and professional advisors think that the way to make money from a book is by selling as many copies as you can. But actually, you get rich by giving away your book. And there are 16 ways that you can give away your book and use it to get leads and to close deals and to raise your fees. So in this part of the webinar, I'm going to show you how to use your book to get meetings with key decision makers and with buyers. I'm going to show you how to use your book to close sales before the sales meeting has even started, how to use your book to add an extra zero to your income, and how to use your book to get on TV and to get media attention. And I'm going to ask you in the chat, which of those 4 possibilities do you find most exciting? Let me just put it in there. And of course, that question isn't going to make much sense right now because it'll be a few seconds until you actually hear me say what those 4 possibilities are. But hey, that's the world of online technology. So here are the 16 ways. And I'm not going to talk through them all right now, because instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you practical examples. And if you stick around to the end, as I said, of the webinar, part of my thank you gift to you is a copy of my new guide, which is called very pragmatically 16 Ways to Grow Your Business with a Book. And they're all laid out in that. So let's dive into the examples. Question: do you struggle to get past gatekeepers? In other words, do you find it hard to get to talk to the decision maker with your clients? And let me know in the chat box if that is a problem for you. Again, I will put the question in there. The joys of technology. Peggy is most excited by how to close sales in advance. And David says, silly question, TV. John says, all of them, absolutely. And that gives me a gauge of how far behind the delay is running. So if getting past gatekeepers is a problem, then take heart. This is one of our authors, Frank Butler, and his company works with hotels, hotel chains, and also small independent hotels. And they wanted to move up into more of the larger chains and getting the larger chains on board. So we designed a 4-stage direct mail campaign for them that started with a copy of Frank's book. Now, he ended up sending out 600 copies in the end. And a few days after sending out the books, an email came in from the secretary at one of the companies that he sent it to saying, we got your book, and unfortunately, you sent it to the wrong person. It should have gone to so-and-so. I forwarded it to her, and I believe she will be contacting you in the next few days. Now, think about that. When was the last time that a gatekeeper forwarded a brochure or a sales letter that wasn't intended for them or for their boss? And when was the last time that they gave you the correct name of the person that you should have spoken to instead? Because their job is to stop you talking to important people. So here is a gatekeeper that is telling you, hey, this is the person you need to talk to. And by the way, I've told her to talk to you instead. And remember, this is a cold approach. This was to a company that they hadn't spoken to before. And it didn't stop there, because the real impact of the book was on their lead generation and their sales pipeline. So 500 of those 600 books was sent out by Frank and his team in the post from their office. And that led to 39 sales meetings in the middle of summer. Now, that's the busy period for hotels. It's hard enough to get meetings with most businesses at that time of year, let alone hotels. And the other 100 books were sent directly from Amazon to senior executives at the major hotel chains. And so the executive would get a brown Amazon package with the book inside it. Now, those 100 books led to 6 further inquiries from major chains that between them were worth $1 million. And there was one particular chain that they'd been trying to get a meeting with for 3 years. The company wouldn't return their calls, they wouldn't reply to emails, and they certainly wouldn't take a meeting. And 1 week after Frank sent the book, he got a phone call saying, I got your book, let's talk. So that's the kind of impact that having a book can have on lead generation and on getting people flowing through the pipeline. If there's a big client that you've been chasing, but you've struggled to get a meeting with them, then this could be the icebreaker that you've been looking for. Now, what's also interesting about Frank and his company is how I got them as a client. It's what I call the world's shortest sales meeting. When I walked into the boardroom for the sales meeting, everyone around the table had a copy of Secrets of a Six-Figure Expert in front of them. And Frank's boss, who's the one who'd invited me in, explained that he'd read my book and he had asked everybody else in that meeting to read the book in advance. Now, remember how I said the dynamics of a sales meeting changed? Well, at that moment, they changed for me. And then he said, we want you to make us the natural expert in our field. Now, natural expert is a term that I created and I introduced it in that book. And as soon as he used my own language back to me, I knew that they weren't considering any other options. So this wasn't a sales meeting anymore. It was a kickoff meeting. And all we needed to do now was agree terms. Okay, moving on. Who wants to get free publicity and PR? Well, this is Vanessa, one of our authors. Now, when we started working together, Vanessa told me that she couldn't write a book because she didn't know enough. And so we started with a short book, and when that was launched, it became a #1 bestseller in 3 countries, the UK, the US, and Australia. And since then, Vanessa has mostly given away her book on her website and to potential clients that she meets. But that book has led to speaking opportunities with the Law Society, with professional associations, with regional business associations, even private banks. She's been interviewed multiple times on BBC Radio and in regional business papers. And she also got a call from a finance paper overseas who asked her to speak at a national business conference that they were organizing. Now, Vanessa has always seen herself as a local expert working with businesses in her own area. So I got a panicked phone call saying, I've got clients calling me from all over the world. What should I do? So I said, well, figure out how much you want to charge them, figure out how they're going to get that money to you, and enjoy having a really great problem. I mentioned BBC Radio there. One of my clients, Christopher Paul Jones, has been featured on BBC television in a series on flying. He is the creator of the Fear of Flying Breakthrough. He helps people to overcome their fear of flying. And of course, the reason why they picked him and put him on their TV show was because of the Fear of Flying Breakthrough. So this is what I'm saying about it'll get you in front of the right people. You know, the TV producers, the showrunners, they're constantly looking for guests to feature. And if you can get your book in front of them, or if they find your book while they're searching for the expert to be interviewed for that topic, then the invitations will come. Now, I mentioned Vanessa used her book to get speaking engagements. This is another of our clients, Dave Howlett, who is a professional speaker. Now, every time that he tried to get booked in the US, he would get asked if he had a book, so he decided it was time to write one. And this is a posting he made on Facebook when he'd just been hired by a new client. I congratulated him, and his reply was, the book clinched the deal. Now, interestingly, a couple of days later, he was hired by one of Canada's largest communications companies, and what we've done for them is to create a custom edition of the book with a foreword by one of the executives and the company logo on the cover. And that kind of thing makes it much more attractive for a company to hire a speaker, because now they've got something personal that they can give to the employees who attend the meeting. Now, of course, you can also use your book to sell products and services. I'll be open and honest here. The book on the left there, Crawl Space Science, is not one of ours. We weren't involved in writing it. We weren't involved in publishing it. I show it, though, because it proves that you can use a book in pretty much any industry. This is a book about how to repair and upgrade the crawl space in the foundations under a building. And what happens is the company gives it to their franchisees and their sales representatives, and they give it out and they use it to get clients and for lead generation. And I've also seen books used to get clients for pest control, for cleaning companies, for wedding venues, for all sorts. So this isn't just a strategy for professional services. However, it does work really well in professional services. This book, Scale Up, is by one of our clients. They're based in the UK, but it's actually a global group of companies with 400 finance directors in 15 different countries. And what they do is they provide part-time financial controllers to businesses that are too big to survive without one, but aren't big enough to be able to afford one full-time. Now, here's the really great thing about this book. Even before it was published, Colin took the first draft that we gave him, and he gave it to his marketing department and said, break this up into lots of articles and posts. And they started posting it, and that led to over £1 million. That's over $1.5 million worth of inquiries. And as I said before, at that point, the book hadn't even been published. Who's excited by the thought of getting money from a book that hasn't even been published yet? Okay, so who wishes that they could get more referrals? You know, it's really hard to get referrals from some people, even when they love what you do, because they don't want to have to be your unpaid sales team. And of course, in some professions, they may not want to admit that they've had to use you. It's much easier to give somebody a copy of a book that could be useful to them. So, oh, you've got an awkward employee causing trouble at work. Here's some great advice in this book. It's much less threatening for you to say to a client, here are 2 copies of my book. If you know someone who would find it useful, please let them have a copy, rather than, hey, if you know someone who could be a client, please let me know and I'll give them a call. And there's also a lot of bragging rights in being able to say to somebody, hey, my children's dentist wrote the book on looking after children's teeth, or my chiropractor wrote the book on back care, or my lawyer is a best-selling author on employment law. I can see Jim said, oh yes, I'm assuming that's either the thought of getting on TV or more likely the thought of making money from a book that hasn't been published yet. So as I said, the book is going to get read. So if one of your clients gives a friend of theirs a copy of your book, the person is going to read it. And remember, the book is planned to get the reader to take action. So that person will then take action. And the book is going to be remembered even years later. Now, one of the best ways to make money is by giving away your book is to use it on your website to capture leads. And this is Derek and Brian. They are down in the States in San Diego. They run a very successful agency that connects businesses with the right online marketing providers. And they use their book, The 30-Minute Guide to Hiring a Great Online Marketing Company, to capture the contact details of visitors to their website, and then they follow up with them. Of course, they can also use the Amazon strategy of sending out printed books to potential clients directly when they identify them. Now, one neat twist on giving away the book in exchange for contact details is you can give away the printed book for free, but ask for shipping and handling. So now you've got the shipping and handling fee, which can cover the cost of having the book printed and shipped. And also, you've got an excuse for getting their mailing address. So now you can follow up with them in the real world and not just by email. Okay, so some of the people watching this may have a service or even a product that needs a lot of explanation. And I used to work for one of the major management consultancies. We would be selling consulting projects that would cost multiple millions of dollars. There were lots of different phases and lots of people involved, lots of stuff going on all the way through. And we created a series of 6 short books. They were all about 40 to 50 pages long, no more, which we then sent out to executives at major corporations. That was really my first exposure to this whole idea of using books for marketing and as part of the sales process. Now, when I wrote Secrets of a Six-Figure Expert myself, it was to launch a big done-for-you marketing program and mastermind that I was offering. There were a lot of elements to it, and normally the sales process would be a 2-day workshop in which I explained everything and how it all worked and why each part of it was necessary. But then one day, one weekend, I was at a conference, and the person sitting next to me turned around and she asked me what I did. Now, of course, the speaker was on stage, and I didn't want to interrupt them. So I just handed her a copy, and I said, look, we can chat later, but this explains it all. Well, over the lunch break, she read the book. She came to me at the end of the break and said, we need to talk. And by the end of that weekend, she had signed up. Now, that's a $20,000 sale to someone who had never met me before I gave her my book. Okay, the last one. Your book positions you at the top of your field. So it allows you to justify charging premium rates. And if you want, you can just simply chase larger and more valuable clients. And for example, in Vanessa's case, she'd been charging $250 a session and selling them one at a time. She went from that to charging $3,000, $3,500 for programs and workshops. And the result was that her average client value went from $800 to $8,000. And then for Frank and his company, their book allowed them to shift focus from smaller customers who would have typically only spent, say, $5,000 a year with them, to larger customers spending $180,000 a year instead. Now, that kind of shift in fee structure and clients doesn't just change businesses, it changes lives. It also, as one of my business mentors says, changes postcodes. You have to think about that one. Now, I mentioned some of the industries I've seen this strategy applied in. Here are some of the books that we have helped to write or publish at Bright Flame Books, and some of the books that we have coming up. As you can see, it works in any industry. In any profession. If you struggle to communicate why what you do is important, or you struggle to stand out from your competitors or to justify your fees, then a book is the perfect solution. So let me ask you a question. Are you enjoying the webinar so far? Am I providing valuable information? Because ultimately that is my goal, and I realize I now have a sweaty few seconds while I wait for the answers to come through on the chat, but hey, I'll just live with it, and I'm going to assume that the answer is yes for now. Here's what we've covered so far. We talked about why almost all marketing fails and how a book will help you to reach the 99% of potential clients who ignore that marketing. I also shared with you why the 6-step collaborative writing process that we take our clients through is structured the way it is, and how you can implement it yourself if you choose to. And I've also shown you how to get rich by giving away copies of your book. And what I just taught you took me multiple years and the best part of $100,000 or even $200,000 to figure out. So the question is, how can I help you? Because despite the fact that 80% of people want to write a book, according to the New York Times, as I said, if you look at the actual statistics, only 1 in 10,000 ever actually does. Jim says it's gold dust with a few diamonds. And David says, yes, it's sweaty. Thank you for that. So where was I? Yes, only 1 in 10,000 people actually ever writes a book. And I know you're probably thinking, but I'm still not clear on what I should write about, and I just don't have the time. Well, here's the thing, though. If it was a big enough priority, if your life or your livelihood literally depended on it, you would find the time, and you would figure out what to write about, and you would absolutely get it done. And what we're talking about is simple, but it's not easy. But it's all about results. It's about turning you into a best-selling author and getting you the clients and status that goes with it. And the best thing is you don't have to do it alone. In fact, doing it alone is a choice, just as not doing it alone. Let me say that again. Just as not doing it alone is a choice. Okay, remember the free gift I promised you at the start of the webinar? Well, here's how to get it. It's my Author Expert Marketing Bundle, and it consists of my new guide, 16 Ways to Grow Your Business with a Book, which takes you through the 16 ways that you can give away your book and use it to get more clients. Then you'll also get 2 resources that are designed to help you to make sure that your book interrupts and engages, which, if you remember, the first 2 stages of that conversion equation I showed you. And you do it by having an attention-grabbing title and cover. So I'm giving you titles that work, 100 of the most effective nonfiction titles and straplines that you can model, and covers that sell, 20 examples of nonfiction book cover designs that you can model to create your own best-selling cover. And to get them, all you have to do is go to the website that you see right there on this slide, www.brightflamebooks.com/author bonus. Write that one down. It's www.brightflamebooks.com/author-bonus. And in addition to that, I would love to help you implement on what I've taught you in this webinar and finally get your authority book written. So if you're interested in a rapid breakthrough, I've set aside 30 minutes to help you personally, one-on-one, as my gift. So if you go to brightflamebooks.com/apply, or if you click on the button on this page when I put it up, oh, how slick. Hang on a second. There it goes. The button should be on the window now. If you click on that button, or if you go to www.brightflamebooks.com/apply, you'll be able to book your 30-minute session with me. Now, this isn't for everybody, so let me tell you who it is for. It's for serious experts and consultants, coaches, speakers, professional advisors. And above all, you must absolutely be coachable. You also need to be able to invest in yourself and in your business. And you need to be willing to charge serious money for what you do, because of the status that being a best-selling author will provide. And finally, you need to be able to set aside the time to implement the marketing strategies that go with being a published author, because a lot of the work that we do with our clients is actually on deciding what those strategies are. Who it's not for, well, it's not for you if you're a whiner, a complainer, or a know-it-all. It's not for you if you're not willing to put in work and put in time and effort. It's also not for you if you think there is nothing that you can learn, if you're closed to new ideas and new ways of doing things. It's not for you if you're a shrinking violet and if you don't want to increase your visibility and your authority. It's no judgment. Some people do not want to stand up and stand out. But if that's you, then this is not for you. And finally, none of this is a get-rich-quick scheme. Now, if you're on this webinar with me, it's because the marketing that you're doing isn't working and your revenue isn't what you want it to be. You're here because you want to change what you've been doing to attract, to engage, and to close new business. And you want to be recognized as an expert and authority in your field. And of course, as I said, you want to be able to charge and to get premium fees to increase your reach and increase your reputation and your revenue. And these are the same reasons why I do this in my own business and why I get my clients to do it. And I've shown you some of the results we get. Those results are only as hard or as easy as you make them. And I can absolutely help you with that, but now it's up to you to take action. So this is what will happen in our 30-minute strategy call. We'll talk about whether a book is the right fit for your business. And if it is, how the book would fit into your business model. We'll consider whether what you're looking for is a shorter lead generation type book or a longer authority book. And we'll discuss which of the ways of growing your business with a book is right for your business. And my promise is that you'll get great value from our conversation, even if you don't end up working with us, because you'll get clarity to help you work on your own. So people sometimes ask me, why do you do this, Rob? Well, the answer is, firstly, because I love helping high achievers, people like you. And secondly, yes, some of the people that I talk to are action takers, and they do end up working with us and becoming one of our authors at Bright Flame Books. I'll be quite honest about that. So if this is right for you, if you want to talk to me, then you can book your one-on-one session at www.brightflamebooks.com/apply. Now, a word of warning, if you are interested in working with us, there are some qualifications to see if we want to work with you. First of all, the product and services that you sell must offer real value to your clients. That means, amongst other things, that you do have real valuable experience in the subject that you want to write about. Secondly, you must be passionate about making positive change in the world. And you need to be 100% committed to taking massive action and doing what it takes. So we're looking for people who can execute a plan and stay on schedule, because that makes our life easier and it makes your life easier, and it means we can plan out the launch of the book and things like that. So if that is you, then www.brightflamebooks.com/apply is where you can set up your one-on-one. Now, I'll tell you again, we expect everyone we work with to become a successful, respected, best-selling author and authority in their field. So click the button on this page or go to that link, www.brightflamebooks.com/apply, and pick a time in the scheduler to meet with me or someone on my team for your strategy session. Both of these cars will get you to the destination. What you need to do is to decide which way you want to get there, because you can get there in that thing on the left, but you'll probably get there much faster, much smarter, and much better, and more comfortably, and probably also have a lot more fun in the Aston Martin on the right. So here's the thing. I would love to meet with you on Skype. I get to meet a lot of people while speaking and training and doing these webinars, And it's always cool to hear where different people's backgrounds and businesses and where they're coming from. So I've set aside time over the next couple of weeks to speak with you. The calls do fill up quickly because I keep the number of sessions limited, and that's on purpose. We choose to work exclusively with a small number of dedicated experts to get a focused, tight-knit group of action takers together who are ready to get real results and make more money now. So thank you very much for your attention, and thank you for investing the time. I know that we're all really busy and we have a lot of things going on, but you had the discipline to make it happen. So I look forward to talking with you about your business and about your goals, and above all, about your book and transforming your business. Thank you again for coming, and we'll talk more soon. Bye for now.